We're speaking with Governor Rick Perry of Texas. Governor Perry, is here speaking at CPAC later on this afternoon, right?
Yes, sir. 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We're going to give them a little red meat.
And I have been at your speeches before, Governor Perry, and you are good at delivering the red meat.
Yeah.
And so what were you looking most out of CPAC? What are you looking for out of CPAC?
Well, opportunity to just say thank you to a lot of conservative people who made this last election possible, whether it was Tea Party members or bloggers and those in the social media who were engaged in kind of going around the mainstream media, getting the real story out about conservative leaders in this country, and certainly in the state of Texas. We had a monstrously successful night. Past anyone's imagination, and I give a great deal of credit to men and women out there with their iPhones and their Blackberries and their internet hookups and sharing the message of truth and of honesty, unvarnished and unfiltered by those who might have an agenda. So it's a way for me to say thank you, for one thing, and then to continue the battle cry that the hard work's in front of us.
Right.
But that there's good days ahead of us. I mean, it's a happy message. America can be a shining city on a hill again. I mean, it's that kind of message they're going to hear from me. But they're going to get a little of the standard. Washington needs to leave us alone. Let us compete with each other rather than centralize all the power in Washington, D.C.
Now, this is interesting because you're sort of the issues that are facing Texas are, by their nature, more national issues. You're going to have to take on the EPA. The EPA recently ruled that Texas couldn't control its own environment, and
right.
You're going to be pushing back hard against that.
Right.
You've already laid out some emergency items on the Texas slate that are in the national and
we filed suit against the federal government on Obamacare. So
yes.
We've got multiple issues with Washington.
So the question naturally becomes, Governor Perry, and I know you're going to roll your eyes when I ask this question. The question naturally becomes: you're in position because you're going to end up being a leading voice against the EPA. That's a national fight. The Obamacare, that's a national fight. Are you interested in getting into the national stage politically?
Well, I'm in the national stage politically.
Electorally, how's that?
I'm the chairman of the Republican Governors Association.
That's right.
Here's and I think people miss this from time to time. I want to try to make Washington, D.C. as inconsequential as I can, so that governors, whether they're the governor of a big state like Texas or maybe a little smaller state, but they're the captains of their own destiny, that they're really the ones that are deciding how their citizens can best live, whether it's how to control their own air, water, environmental laws, or whether it's how to deliver health care, how to build the transportation infrastructure, or something as important as how do we educate our children. Get out of our way, Washington, D.C. Let us do this. We know best how to take care of our business. And, I know everybody doesn't want to be a Texan. They're not everybody going to want to be like us. But those that do want to live free, those that do want to live in an environment where you don't have overtaxation, over-regulation, over-litigation, come on down to Texas. You'll like it. And if you want to go somewhere where they got high taxes and high regulation and social issues that are kind of to the left side of the center, then California's still out there for you.
My home state, actually. My birth state. My home state now is Minnesota.
Well,
but
come on down.
Come on down to Texas. Well, a lot of people took your advice because in the last census, the reapportionment, you're going to get 4 extra seats in Congress. So while you're saying that Washington needs to be less relevant to Texans, Texas is going to be a lot more relevant to Washington in the next 10 years.
That's a good thing.
I assume that you thought so. I assume that you thought so. What do you think is going to be the impact of having a bolstered Texas congressional delegation?
Well, here's what I think is more important. I hope all across this country that whether you were a Tea Party member, whether you were just a frustrated Republican, whether you were an independent who's a fiscal conservative in nature, that you continue to keep the pressure on. This isn't about honestly, this really isn't about Texas. It's about our country.
Right.
I want Texas to be a place that screams out freedom and liberty. I want it to always be a beacon, and I hope there's a lot of other beacons out there where the people can find safe havens from over-regulation and over-taxation. That's what my dream is all about. It's not about going to Washington, D.C. As a matter of fact, I hope we find some man or woman who will help dismantle this consolidation of power in Washington, D.C. That we've seen, and get back to what our founding fathers really, that was their vision.
Right.
They had seen that oppressive government, and letting the states have those enumerated and many powers, and keeping Washington having those enumerated and few powers.
Governor Perry, you could almost call the last decade, the one where you had such dramatic population growth, the Rick Perry decade. You were governor during that entire period, almost that entire period of time, between the last two censuses. And what was it that drove the population to Texas? I mean, I know I'm talking to a Texas governor, so I'm going to hear a lot about what a great state Texas is. But specifically, in the last 10 years, while you were governor, what was it that drove people to Texas, and what was it that drove them out of the other states from where they were coming?
It's really pretty simple. You keep your taxes low, you have a regulatory climate that is fair and predictable, a legal system that doesn't allow for oversuing, and continue to fund accountable public schools so you've got that skilled workforce for the jobs that are going to be created, then get the hell out of the way, government, and let the private sector do what the private sector does best, which is create jobs that in turn create wealth. It is that simple. It's hard to find the men and women who actually believe it and will act on it and let it become a reality. We've done it in Texas. I tell people, I said, we may be on the verge of the Texas century. Not just a decade, but the Texas century. And I challenge any other governor out there to make it not so.
Governor Perry, thank you very much. It's going to be great seeing you up on the stage this afternoon. I know you're going to rock the house. You always do. Thank you very much, sir.